Mr. K made a horrifying discovery. This Eerie hotel was slowly contracting at a pace imperceptible to the naked eye. To confirm this terrifying suspicion, he tied a taut rope between the walls at both ends of his room. The next morning, the originally straight rope hung down, suspiciously slack. The rope itself hadn't shortened, so the only explanation was that the distance between the two walls was shrinking. This discovery made every hair on his body stand on end. What filled him with even greater despair was that this hotel had no exit whatsoever. The chefs and guests trapped here had been living within its walls for a full 10 years, yet not one had ever stepped outside the main door. Now, this ever-shrinking cage was slowly squeezing everyone's living space. One day, everyone inside would be crushed into pulp, becoming sacrifices buried alongside this devouring hotel. Yet, within the entire hotel, apart from Mr. K, it seemed no one else perceived the truth. When he frantically tried to tell the chefs, their reaction was unnervingly indifferent, and then they unceremoniously threw Mr. K out of the kitchen. The reason was simple. No one needed someone who thought himself enlightened to tell them a truth they already knew. Mr. K was originally just a traveling magician, planning to give a simple performance in this town. Last night, he found a hotel nearby for lodging. The front desk was manned by a one-eyed old woman. He went to bed early, wanting to conserve energy for the next day's show, never expecting to wake up into a nightmare. The next morning, as he dragged his heavy prop case, ready to leave, the stairway entrance at the end of the hallway had vanished into thin air, replaced by a solid wall. The wallpaper pattern matched the surrounding walls perfectly, as if an exit had never existed there. Mr. K-Nike's career as a magician made him acutely sensitive to spatial anomalies. He clearly remembered ascending the stairs from that very spot the night before. The sight before him completely bewildered him. The peeling paint and yellowed wallpaper looked nothing like a hastily constructed wall. Just as he was utterly perplexed, the entire corridor suddenly shook violently, with rusty pipes clanging loudly within the walls. Then came rhythmic vibrations through the walls. In the flickering lights, several hidden doors cracked open without warning near the baseboards. Even more bizarrely, a band filed out of the narrow hidden doors one by one, playing a cheerful marching tune as they advanced towards Mr. K. The hotel, already poorly lit, now felt even more cramped and oppressive. Mr. K was completely baffled. He instinctively stepped back to make way, only to bump into a waiter at the corner who expertly shoved a serving tray into his hands.
We haven't got all day. Get in line. Get in line.
Just like that, Mr. K found himself inexplicably hired into the hotel's kitchen. Melinda, the woman in charge, dragged him into the kitchen without a word, and a strong, eggy smell hit him right in the face. The entire kitchen, apart from the ceaselessly busy chefs, resembled a mad egg processing plant, with conveyor belts ceaselessly transporting eggs of all kinds. Chicken eggs, duck eggs, quail eggs. All sorts of eggs rolled in line into the chef's hands to be fried, scrambled, boiled, and cooked into various dishes. Before Mr. K could react, Melinda roughly threw an apron over him. Having been singled out by Melinda, Mr. K was immediately different from the others. The other chefs shot him jealous looks, as if this newcomer had snatched away some precious opportunity. In this bizarre hotel, even a menial job in the kitchen had become an enviable position. It turned out that to his colleagues, Mr. K was seen as someone benefiting from favoritism. He hurriedly explained to Anton that he was just passing through, but before he could finish, Anton suddenly clammed up as if seeing a ghost, burying himself in his work. Mr. K turned around to find the head chef standing right behind them, expression sternly fixed on them, uncannily, like getting caught slacking off at work. But Mr. K didn't care. Right in front of the head chef, he casually performed some magic. Surprisingly, the head chef just watched for a moment with an ominous gaze, then turned and walked away. Now, in the eyes of his colleagues, Mr. K's status as the favored one was truly confirmed, and the kitchen returned to its uneasy calm. After work, the chefs returned to their shared dormitory. They took out their few old instruments and sang and danced under the dim light. Mr. K was infected by this spirit of making the best of their plight, but when he woke the next day, he discovered his suit had been taken off him and put on someone else. Unlike the others who wore chef's whites, he had remained in his suit from head to toe. While chatting with Anton again, a sharp cracking sound suddenly came from the ceiling. Mr. K excused himself. He crept quietly into the corridor, pricking up his ears to discern the source of the strange noise. It was unmistakably the sound of wooden structures cracking under the pressure as two walls slowly drew closer together. A terrifying thought flashed through his mind. Was the entire hotel really contracting? He tried stretching his arms to measure the corridor's width, but no matter how far he reached, his fingertips couldn't touch the opposite wall. This result made him shake his head and smile bitterly. Perhaps he really was overthinking things. With a touch of self-mockery, he turned and walked into the bathroom. Just as he was relieving himself, the doorknob behind him turned from the outside. Someone was trying to break in. Fortunately, Mr. K had the habit of locking the door, which kept the uninvited guest outside.
It's occupied! Go away!
Are you him?
What do you mean?
Is it true what they say? Are you the liberator?
You have me mixed up with someone else. I'm just passing through.
The doorknob turned a few times and then suddenly stopped. Incoherent speech came from outside the door. The person claimed to be some kind of liberator. The rambling words outside left Mr. K utterly bewildered. Just as he was frozen in confusion, the ventilation grate at the bottom of the door was suddenly pushed open. Then, several pale hands snaked in through the vent under the door, frantically clawing at the bathroom floor, trying to grab his ankles. Mr. K desperately kicked at the bizarre arms, but he couldn't stop their movements at all. In desperation, Mr. K blurted out, "I am nothing!" And the hands suddenly froze, then withdrew in unison. Silence returned outside the door, but Mr. K didn't know if the liberator had left. He knew nothing about the situation outside. To avoid further trouble, he curled up in a corner of the bathroom and fell into a deep sleep. It wasn't until the next morning that Anton's knocking woke Mr. K. As he got up, graffiti on the opposite wall suddenly caught his eye. Anton explained that it was the work of children in the hotel, a crooked English word, liberator, meaning precisely liberator or savior. That word instantly made Mr. K think of the madman's ramblings. Back in the kitchen, Mr. K remained distracted. When he tentatively asked Anton about the hotel exit, Anton stammered and couldn't answer. This man, who had worked there for 7 years, had never once set foot outside the hotel. Although their chef positions were now reduced, and even their workspace was gradually shrinking, these people remained utterly unfazed, like a mountain. They had never gone out and eventually forgotten where the door was. Just then, Mrs. Hum from the front desk appeared at the end of the corridor. Mr. K immediately gave chase, but in just 2 seconds, her shuffling figure vanished without a trace, as if evaporated. Mr. K stormed off to find the head chef and firmly demanded to leave. Although Mr. K kept insisting he had no special qualities, the head chef decided to promote him instead. And his reaction completely took Mr. K by surprise.
Please?
What are you doing?
You can't leave now. You're crushing an old man's dream. His very hopes, son.
The white-haired old man suddenly stood up, hugged Mr. K tightly, and whispered something in his ear.
Believe me, be patient, have faith. Oh, I have such great hopes for you, you know. Please. Oh, please.
Although he didn't know what was happening, faced with an old man kneeling and begging, Mr. K, however resolute, had no choice but to compromise temporarily. Perhaps the head chef valued precisely Mr. K's desperate urge to escape. His other colleagues stood at the door, staring in shock at him and the head chef. That night, back in his room, Mr. K lay in bed carefully surveying his surroundings, vaguely sensing something odd about the room's dimensions. To verify this terrible suspicion, he tied a taut rope between the two walls. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, he saw the once straight rope sagging down. This confirmed his suspicion. The room was contracting at a pace imperceptible to the naked eye. Yet this discovery didn't excite or intrigue Mr. K. He only sighed deeply. Mr. K vaguely realized that the hotel's continuous shrinking might herald something even more terrible. He immediately told Anton about his discovery. Passing through the corridor, he saw guests from various rooms moving furniture out. Clearly, the cramped space could no longer accommodate everyday items. To prove this frightening reality to Anton, Mr. K stood in the middle of the corridor and stretched out his arms. This time, his hands could simultaneously touch both walls. Compared to yesterday's measurement, the distance had shrunk by 2 full hand spans. However, Anton just looked at him in confusion, said nothing, and hurried off to work. When they reached the kitchen, the sight confirmed Mr. K's fears. The once orderly workspace had become crowded and chaotic due to the compressed space. Chefs bumped into each other in the narrow aisles, with pots and pans clattering incessantly. Unwilling to accept this, Mr. K approached the head chef, proposing to form a team to investigate why the hotel was shrinking. However, the head chef flatly refused, citing waiting guests needing breakfast. Refusing to give up, Mr. K jumped onto a dining table and loudly explained the crisis to all the chefs, only to receive looks of disgust. Before he could finish, his colleagues threw him out of the kitchen. Standing in the corridor, Mr. K felt a deep sense of helplessness. This isolation was even more despairing than the shrinking hotel itself. Just as he walked back dejectedly, he encountered a pair of elderly women. The two frail old women were struggling to drag a sofa out the door. The kind-hearted Mr. K immediately stepped in to help. When they realized he was the young man searching for an exit, one of the elderly women said something cryptic.
There used to be some talk of the presence of the divine here at the hotel. We French like the mysterious. Nonsense, of course. I did mention that we are French,
What miracle? Mr. K was completely baffled, dismissing it as the old women's rambling. He returned to his room. The orchestra was still playing in the hallway. The chefs were banging pots and pans in the same rhythm, and even the pipes and window frames were vibrating at the exact same frequency. The three sounds intertwined eerily, creating a chilling resonance. Even with his ears tightly covered, the demonic sound waves found their way relentlessly into his brain. Even more disturbingly, through the door crack, he caught a glimpse of Mrs. Hum dancing gracefully, and the two old women from before stood embracing each other, humming along to the rhythm. At that moment, windows all around shattered one after another, due to the walls pressing together, shards of glass raining down. Mr. K, after getting up, looked out at the courtyard. Countless windows exploded in succession, the shockwaves knocking him to the ground once more. The urgency of death finally overcame his fear. He had to act immediately, or he would eventually be crushed to death by this living hotel. He began making marks on the corridor walls, attempting to sketch an escape map. However, when he peeled off a piece of flaking wallpaper, the sight before him froze his blood. Beneath the wallpaper wasn't brickwork, but a tangled mass of fleshy tendrils, slowly writhing within the wall. Suppressing his nausea, Mr. K cautiously pressed down on it. The disgusting mass of tendrils immediately bulged outward, reacting as if it could sense his touch. Mr. K grabbed a metal serving tray and used its sharp edge to slash viciously at the bulging flesh. With a piercing shriek, the entire hotel shook violently. Lights flickered madly, pipes burst, as if the very building had been wounded. Staggering, Mr. K rushed back to his room. The moment he stepped inside, Mrs. Hum appeared before the wall he had cut. She stroked the wounded tendrils, murmuring under her breath. Even more bizarrely, the word liberator had been written in red paint on his door at some point. Pushing the door open, the sight left him dumbstruck. Nearly all the guests were crammed into his room, forcing Mr. K to sleep, resigned, on the corridor floor. In the middle of the night, the wallpaper suddenly peeled off, draping over him like a thin blanket. The next morning, a shrill telephone ring jolted him awake. Mr. K dashed into the room, eagerly hoping to answer the call. This might be his last chance to escape. But the young man closest to the phone snatched it first, said wrong number, and hung up, completely ignoring Mr. K's frantic protests. Anger finally overcame reason. Mr. K grabbed a mop and drove all the uninvited guests out of the room. As he pushed the last person out and leaned back against the door, he saw the room had visibly shrunk. The meticulously drawn hotel layout he had made earlier was torn to shreds in the chaos. Mr. K grew somewhat numb. He collapsed onto the deformed mattress, staring blankly at the ceiling. Suddenly, the overhead light began to rotate eerily, then plummeted without warning, shattering beside him. Before Mr. K could recover from the shock, he looked up to see a circular hole exposed where the light fixture had been. The two old women poked their heads through the hole. Knowing Mr. K was struggling to find an exit, they offered comfort and encouragement, telling him not to give up hope. But Mr. K was utterly exhausted. He listened numbly to their encouraging words.
Maybe the exit is in here. No! Maybe it's in here.
Mr. K never dreamed that a deep passageway lay hidden behind the wardrobe in his room. The inner walls of the passage were lined with pulsating, fleshy folds, resembling the innards of some creature. He hesitated at the entrance for a long while, but ultimately steeled himself and crawled in. After all, there was no other path left. Yet when he finally reached the light at the end, the sight before him made him feel as if plunged into an icy abyss. It wasn't an exit at all, but an egg of Cthulhu. Just then, a tremendous crash sounded behind him as the door was smashed in. Other guests swarmed into the room. The egg sac suddenly ruptured, and a colossal entity slowly emerged. Mr. K's pupils contracted violently. It was unmistakably the being he had seen in occult texts, a creature named Cthulhu. This ancient god with the head of an octopus now loomed before him. Even more terrifyingly, the intruding guests didn't flee. Instead, they knelt down in unison to worship. Faced with this entity beyond reason, Mr. K felt no fear. Instead, a pure sense of wonder at the birth of new life welled up within him. As he gently placed his hand on the egg membrane, he could clearly sense the thoughts of the Cthulhu entity. The entire hotel itself was a living womb, constantly contracting its space to nurture this sacred egg, hence the bizarre shrinking of the hotel. The frenzied guests charged into the passageway one after another. They trampled on the tentacles, each stomp drawing a heart-wrenching scream from Cthulhu. In a flash, Mr. K made his choice. To save Cthulhu from the guests, he used all his strength to push the giant egg out through the passage. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself deep in the ocean. Cthulhu swam behind him, wrapping him tightly in its tentacles, carrying him towards the light at the surface. This movie, on the surface, is about a monster hotel, but it's really about the dilemmas in each of our lives. Imagine checking into a strange hotel where the corridors narrow daily. The rooms grow ever smaller, yet everyone says it's normal. You look for an exit, but the front desk is always empty. You seek help, but others think you're making a fuss. Once you grasp the metaphor, isn't this our familiar daily reality? We're like living in shrinking rooms. Corporate performance targets, societal expectations, all silently squeezing our living space. You think changing jobs or moving cities will bring relief, only to find the same rules apply everywhere. The scariest part is that those around you have adapted to this suffocating feeling, seeing your struggle as abnormal. When the protagonist finally discovers the entire hotel is a womb nurturing a monster, shouldn't we also ask, what kind of monster are we feeding with our daily lives? Not every movie has a realistic ending, but every fear has a real source. We'll see you in the next film.